welcome back, my cat daddies, to Nate's Aerobics. Yeah, everybody, come on. Yeah. All right, everybody. Now you're gonna be learning the shoes. Maybe if we're gonna dance, we don't. Yeah. This show is great.
Oh, hey, Tyler, what's up, man? What's going on? What do you need?
Hey, could you hook me up with those dance guys from the tape a little while back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's not going to be a problem. I mean, I went to tied direct to their show. I mean, back in the 90s in New York City, it's just like, I was all over the place, just like doing like shows, dancing everywhere. Every street corner, people were just popping and locking and just doing kind of like, I mean, people would dance in the subways. Like, it was a time in which they actually asked me to run for mayor in New York. Anyways, Brooklyn Bridge, you'd be climbing up. I'd be actually up on skyscrapers. It's a little dangerous. Just knew everybody. So, yeah, I can totally get you in touch with those guys. It's not a problem.
Wow, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Prom?
Yes.
Data from the U.S. Department of Education indicates that more than 110,000 student loan recipients have been excused from paying $6.8 billion in debts under temporary changes to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Hundreds of thousands more borrowers could get relief under the effort, which stems from policy fixes that the Biden administration announced last year. The average borrower affected so far received nearly $60,000 in debt relief, the department said. In other news, on Tuesday, the U.S. Supreme Court confirmed that a leaked draft ruling to overturn Roe v. Wade was authentic but not final. On Wednesday, President Joe Biden released a statement opposing the potential overturning of Roe v. Wade. If the court does overturn Roe, it will fall on our nation's elected officials at all levels of government to protect a woman's right to choose, and it will fall on voters to elect pro-choice officials this November, Biden said. The Transcript will continue to cover this issue as events unfold. I'm Shiloh Hammerland, and thank you for watching.
Welcome to Ham Top.
Y'all ready for this?
The sport of tennis dates back as far as the late 19th century, originating in England as a very formal game, strictly played by the wealthy. Naturally, it became a very formal game. Tennis still carries these traditions to this day, nearly 2 centuries later, and is now played all over the world. We sat down with members of the NHS tennis team to learn more about the formalities of tennis and see how their season is going.
I think for me, just being able to be outside every day after school playing tennis together as a team is what always brings me back to it. Even if it's not, the most competitive at times, you're mostly just trying to have fun and learn new strokes and how to better be a tennis player.
I think also something that is really always the most fun part about tennis is the sort of friendship that all the players have and the bond that we all have, and the energy on the court is just always so good, and everyone is always just having a good time.
Yeah, just to echo what Josie and Lucy said, the team camaraderie is very important, and it keeps me coming back every year.
So for everyone who doesn't know sort of the rules of tennis, the honor system is how we keep track of our points and make sure that everyone is on the same page. You're constantly communicating with your opponent throughout the entire match, checking in about the score, what point you're on, how many games you've won or lost, or anything like that. Just making sure that everyone is on the same page and keeping each other accountable for the score.
Yeah, I think just honesty is a really important part of it. During the game, making sure everyone's keeping track of the same points and stuff, and that's how we continue to play.
The formalities of tennis allow us to hone our skills that we practice on every day and allow us to do our best. So actually, I think it's a very key part of tennis. If you've ever seen professionals play, that's what they focus on.
Yeah, support from the background of your team is also helpful when you do win a point and stuff, but most of the time we're pretty quiet and, focused, and that does help us, stay in the game mode, as Lucy said.
I honestly believe that if you can control your anxiety and your stress when you're in a game, that is the most important part, and that is the most important thing when you're going to have success in tennis. Being able to calm your mind before a point, being able to sort of let all your stress go and just focus on the game and play hard and play well.
Yeah, I think just making sure that you're focusing on yourself and each point as an individual time that you could possibly win, and every serve you just have that mindset of staying focused and in the game. It'll definitely help.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in next week when we talk about pregame rituals in sports.
Over the last week, NHS students have been busy organizing a range of environmental initiatives addressing climate change. This past Monday, a poetry vigil was held at the Northampton High School aiming to celebrate the power of youth action in combating climate change. Sponsored jointly by the NHS Environmental Club and Climate Action Now, the event was intended to bring awareness to the climate crisis. Additionally, the Cooler Communities Initiative distributed a video for students to watch during FlexBlock to further their understanding about the issue. With the issue of climate change at the forefront of students' minds, we sought to learn more about this global issue and why it's important to our school community.
Youth Climate Action Now is the youth branch of Climate Action Now. We started this year, and the Poetry Vigil was our kickoff event. We are an action-based group. We run climate actions, but the Poetry Vigil was our first, and we're currently partnering with Mass Audubon and the Hitchcock Center to create a Little Leaders Climate Convention that will happen this summer, which is the next event that we're planning. I think because we've all grown up in this crisis, we want to end up still living by the end of it. I think that's kind of our goal, which seems morbid, but at this point, that's kind of where we are. We aren't sure what our next event is going to be other than the Little Leaders Climate Convention. We're trying to partner with Sunrise Amherst, though, to maybe do more poetry vigils or art-related climate action.
Recently, Alabama, Arkansas, Texas, and Missouri have proposed legislation making it a felony to provide gender-affirming care to trans youth. The punishment for providing this care can be up to 10 years in prison. These bills go against the consensus of almost every major medical association in the West. For example, the American Medical Association, the American Nurses Association, the American Academy of Family Physicians, and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, as well as many, many more, support this care for children that need it. I sat down with Mia Lauder, the Community Engagement Specialist at the Trans Health Northampton Clinic in Florence, to find out more about what gender-affirming care looks like for trans youth and the side effect that these bills will have on the transgender community as a whole.
In terms of the states where they're actually being passed, I think one of the things that we're seeing here at Trans Health is we've been in contact with a number of different families that are actually moving out of these states, of places like Arizona and Texas. That's fleeing your community, your job, home, school, forcing children to undergo a puberty that is going to lead to trauma that is going to last for a very long time. And it's very scary to talk about, but it is really, lives are at stake when you're talking about mental health outcomes that are that severe. So when we talk about what gender affirming care is, I think the common misconception is people immediately jump to things like surgery, hormones, blockers, and stuff like that. But at the most basic level, gender affirming care is really just using the correct name and pronouns for someone who comes into the doctor's office or wherever they're going for medical care. We have tons of patients that haven't been to doctors in years, and that's because the distress of going somewhere and being misgendered, not using the correct name, basically not being seen for who you really are, that distress is so high that people go so far to avoid, essential healthcare appointments to avoid it.
Massachusetts is not exempt from anti-trans narratives or anti-trans rhetoric, and that we need to, even though we do have statewide protections here, that the work still needs to continue, right? It doesn't mean that we're done. We need to still continue to have conversations, make sure people are informed so that they can make informed decisions. Taking away also, essentially, that's what these bills are. These bills are basically trying to say that people aren't who they say they are. Taking away information from people is not going to make them change who they are.
Many of these bills have already been passed, while Missouri, for example, is attempting to raise the minimum age to receive this care to 25. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.